Alright, so I just now recently saw the Ethan Van Sciver interview with Fox Day. From what I understand, I just saw it, so this is just me rattling off my thoughts. Ethan Van Sciver also posted a post video thoughts video, and he did a good job of kind of breaking down and summarizing everything, well, the most important things, the main points of the conversation they had. So what I get from this is that VOX Day is trying to make a book, right, comic, trying to have his own comic book distributor outside of Diamond, which I think in itself is really ambitious because Diamond has like what 90% of like the whole distribution for comics. I know when Diamond went under and they weren't able to deliver the comics in a timely fashion at my comic book shops, it actually hurt the stores. I remember going in there picking up my pull list. I think it was for I think it might have been for Mr. Miracle, and we came in and they were like, hey, there's no comics. Diamond just didn't deliver them on time. We'll let you know on Facebook. And I don't think they got them till Friday. Even because of that, their shipment was delayed for another couple days. So they didn't get the books until like 4 days after they needed, new comic book day on Wednesday. So to be able to do that and be able to distribute their own comics that's a lot. That's a lot. Not to mention that this book, Alt-Right Hero, I've seen the covers on Twitter. I don't know much about it, but it seems that he's trying to do it as like kind of like flipping the proverbial bird towards Marvel and saying, hey, I've got people to support him. And he did. He was able to get $25,000 in 4 hours, but then you find out it was a couple people backing him, giving him, one person contributed, let's say 4,000, somebody else contributed 5,000 and whatnot. Now, here's the thing. He's got the money for the Kickstarter. He's got over the amount that he needed. But there was a couple causes of concern. He's a gamer. He admitted that, and he said he was not in the comics. He just doesn't really care about them, which is a red flag, because you don't necessarily need to be into comics to have a comic book publishing company, right? But it would certainly help. It's kind of one of those things where you would have to know what your audience wants. And it kind of seems that he's a little bit blind to that. In some ways, he's kind of falling into the same pitfalls that Marvel is. He even mentioned certain things about the art. He says it's a whole bunch of drawings and illustrations, but there's not enough dialogue, enough writing for these books. And I'm just looking at it, I'm like, that's not exactly, but very close to what the top editorial Marvel said earlier last year, that nobody cares about the art, it's about the writing, the stories. That's not true. Once again, comics is a visual medium. I mean, that's like saying you're going to the movies, the writing and dialogue's really good for the movie, but the way it's filmed is not good, the camera quality isn't good, the special effects are garbage, the set design looks really cheap, but the writing is top notch, like Oscar award winning writing. That wouldn't work because it's a visual medium. You have to have both. So him not understanding that kind of makes me nervous. Now, he does have a sense of arrogance, right? I'm kind of curious to see how this works out, because if it does work, that'll just be really neat. So I think I'm more interested to see how this whole thing happens with his comic book publishing company that he's trying to do. He's getting a lot of artists on here, but then he even himself admitted that he wouldn't be able to get the top artist. Which, I mean, you can get artists that are really good, but aren't at the big two, right? There's a whole bunch of people, even though we give Tumblr a lot of shade because they have some really bad artists that seem to get hired for Marvel. Yeah, on the other side of the spectrum, you have people that are really talented and they're not given the time of day for whatever reason. I mean, just top-notch art. One I can think of is Murky Mercs, Miguel Mercado, a couple of our artists. So, I don't know. He's saying that you have to find broaden your audience. Something similar to what Marvel said. The problem is you don't want to broaden your audience and alienate the people that are already buying your books, because you have to keep in mind, let's say you broaden the audience and you're able to get, let's say, 3,000 people into comics. Now, they might buy one comic a month and that's it. But what about the, let's say, the smaller audience that consistently buy books? And we're not talking about the people that come in and pick up, 1 or 2 comics a month. We're talking about the people that come in weekly, bi-weekly, and buy like, 8, 9 comics, let's say $30 worth of comics. You have people blowing off like $80 to $100 monthly on comics. Now, what would you do if you changed up things so much that they stop buying comics? But you're like, oh, we got the other 4,000 people to buy these comics. Would that really work? I mean, you're losing money. Granted, you want to expand the audience, but you don't want to do it at the expense of the people that you already have constantly coming in there week after week at your local comic book shop. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is find a middle ground. It's like, yeah, there's enough room for both of us. Let's say some people like mysteries and some people really want just superhero comics. They want their Superman, they want their Batman, they want their superhero comics, they want their very masculine, tough, superheroes. They also want their very beautiful, feminine superheroes or side characters or whatnot, and really good art, and just a whole bunch of action, just your standard superhero comic. So why not provide that and make it very well written? I mean, he's got Chuck Dixon writing his stories. I mean, this is the guy that wrote for Batman. This is the guy that got me into reading Nightwing comics because of his 90s run. Okay? So you have the talent. But here's the thing. You have the resources, but you want to make sure you're implementing those resources in the best possible way. I think from what he said in the interview, he's got the smarts. He can figure out things and be adaptable. So even if it does kind of teeter and fail at certain parts, I think he'll be able to be quick enough to adapt. I think that's what separates his thinking from that of Marvel. He's probably thinking this. It's like, well, yeah, we'll do this, and we want to broaden the audience. But I think what he'll start to notice is that, yeah, we need to broaden out the audience, but we don't want to sacrifice the people that we already have getting our books. So those are some of the key things I feel that he really needs to pick up on and notice. That's for sure. But yeah, what do you think about this alt-right hero book? Yeah, there's a lot of politics involved and whatnot, but it is interesting to see how this whole thing pans out. Once again, Ethan Van Sciver really is killing it with these interviews. He's good. He's really good at conducting interviews and not jumping to conclusions, but is able to ask the questions that we all want, but he delivers it in a really good way. I've been impressed with his interviews with Mark Waid and Dan Slott. The way he handled those was really impressive, because there were certain times in those videos I was like, I don't think you should have said that, man, in an interview. I mean, you've got a lot of people that don't really look at you in the best way. Mark Waid, Dan Slott, but the way he conducted it, Ethan Van Sciver, was really good. So once again, I'll keep my eyes open to see how this distributing of these books, alt-right hero and whatever things VOX Day is doing, and hopefully it works out. I'll see you on the next.